Hello YouTube, this is Champion 2D Rob back again. Please excuse the noise coming from my window. The window doesn't close properly, so unfortunately you will hear some noise. There's nothing I can do about it, unfortunately. But anyway, hi guys, good to see everyone back. Yeah, this is going to be a Blu-rays pickups video. Now I've got some Blu-rays here that have been building up since January. So there's a lot of Blu-rays here, a lot of good stuff, some box sets, some steelbooks, some nostalgic films, a few upgrades, and yeah, some great stuff here building up. I'm not too sure if I'm going to split this into two parts, so we'll just we'll feel it through, see how it goes. But first off, how's everybody doing? It's been a while, I know, yes. I've just been out enjoying the sun, really, focusing mainly on work, trying to save up some money. Which is ironic given what this video is about. But trust me guys, I haven't really been spending that much. It's just that, like I say, this has basically been been building up since January. So when you look at it like that, it's actually not that many films. But yeah, I've just been trying to save up. I've got a stag do next year, so I'm just trying to save up for that. I'm going away, basically. I'm going to Vegas, which is why I'm saving up. And I've also got another holiday that I want to take. It's not set in stone yet, but it's somewhere very cool. And if I do decide to go, I will of course let you guys know, because it may actually be relevant to this channel. So in any case, guys, yeah, it's good to be back on YouTube. Just trying to find a time to make these videos, yeah, I'll just stop, blabbering on and get straight onto the pickups, because that's what you guys wanted to see. So yeah, I've bought some decent stuff since January. A lot of good films. There's been a lot of good stuff on Netflix as well, which has kind of made me pull back a little bit as well on my spending, because there's a lot of good stuff on Netflix. I'm a bit backlogged on Netflix. And even in some of these Blu-rays as well, I haven't even opened them yet, some of them. I've watched a few obviously, but I'm still working my way through. It's just that with my job and whatnot, and trying to find the time, that and trying to game as well, it's not enough time in the world. But yeah, I have picked up some really cool stuff, so I think I will start with the box sets. We've got two box sets here. The very first one I picked up, this is actually a rebuy. I decided to just buy the whole collection again, because I want to move on my old original individual season box sets. So what I picked up was the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the whole entire series. This is series 1 to 7. Now, back in the day, I say back in the early 2000s, early to mid 2000s, I was massive into Angel, the spin-off show of Buffy. That's how I actually got into Buffy. I originally started watching Angel, and I just thought it was a fantastic show. It's one of my favourite shows of all time. Just absolutely loved it. I felt they cancelled it way too soon. It only lasted 5 seasons. But it was through that show that I went back and started watching Buffy, and I began to really like it. The first series of Buffy is a bit iffy, but from season 2 onwards it really picks up, and it's actually a really good show. So yeah, it's just nice to get the repurposed, repackaged version of the series in a more compact form. So I'm going to basically get rid of my old DVD box sets and just move them on, because I think they just take up too much space. That's basically what it is. It's just trying to save some space. But the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series for me was some of the best television around. Definitely one of Joss Whedon's shining moments. So yeah, great to get this in the collection. And the next thing I picked up, which is actually quite relevant since the new series has just started, and that is the Game of Thrones complete series 1 to 6. Yeah, fantastic. I love Game of Thrones, guys, and if you're one of the few people on this planet that is not watching Game of Thrones, watch it. It is fantastic. It is great. If you like dark fantasy, definitely check out Game of Thrones, guys. Most of you that are watching the show don't need me to convince you, obviously, but it's fantastic, and I couldn't say no to this. Seasons 1 to 6, I actually picked it up for 60 quid, which worked out to 10 pounds a season, which is a really good deal. I actually should have held off for about a few more weeks because the price actually dropped down to about £40. So I was quite gutted by that. I would have saved some more money, but in any case, it's really nice to have, and I'm glad to have the sort of the current slate of seasons now that we've just started season 7. Okay, so moving on, I have some. Let's see here. Let's start with. Okay, let's do. A couple of quality British movies that I absolutely love. Basically, these are just upgrades. I've had these films on DVD for years. It's some of my favourite films of all time. First one being Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. Actually, let me just... Sorry, it's a little bit glary here, so I'm going to try and shift the camera over. Just so it's just not indirect off the lights. Let's see how it looks. Still a bit too glary. Bear with me 1 second, guys. Oh, damn it. Okay, let's see if that's any better. Whoop. Bit of fiddling around. Okay. Let's see, is it good? Is it good? Still, I can't really get rid of the glare, but I'll try and I'll manage. Yeah, so anyway, guys, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. Absolutely love this film. I watched it when it first came out. It's a fantastic movie, guys. I'm sure most of you have heard of it, but yeah, I had to upgrade it to Blu-ray. Surprisingly quite difficult to get. It holds its value. I think it's out of print, this particular Blu-ray copy. You can get the American version, which is region free, but to try and get a UK copy is surprisingly expensive. But I actually managed to get this for a good price. I actually had to resort to eBay, and I won it on auction. But yeah, really glad to get this upgraded to Blu-ray because it's an awesome film. And of course, to follow that up, I've got Snatch as well. The second film from Guy Ritchie. Fantastic movie. Absolutely a classic. Love it to bits. Okay, moving on from that, I've got some sci-fi movies and whatnot. This first sort of collection I picked up just because I got it for a really good price, and that was the Cloverfield collection. So you've got Cloverfield and you've got 10 Cloverfield Lane. I actually bought this primarily because I hadn't seen 10 Cloverfield Lane, so I wanted to check that out. And I've seen Cloverfield. I actually really enjoyed Cloverfield. I'm not really into the sort of found footage type of movies, you know, where it's like all filmed on a camcorder and stuff, and it's all shaky. I'm not really a fan of those particular genre of movies. But I actually really enjoyed Cloverfield. I saw that at the cinema. I thought it was a good movie. But I knew that number 10 Cloverfield Lane was actually a very different film. And I was pleasantly surprised by it. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I just really like the actor John Goodman. I've been a fan of his since like the Roseanne days. And I've just enjoyed his performances. And he absolutely delivered in this movie. It was a fantastic film. It's great to see him on the big screen again, actually. It's good to see him in movies in general. Like, he doesn't really pop up a lot in movies, but it's always great to see when he does. And I thought he fully delivered in this film. And it was a very different movie to the original Cloverfield, but it was still a very good movie. So yeah, glad to get that. Next film I picked up. This is another upgrade for me, and that is The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. This is a film that was directed by Terry Gilliam. Same person that did Time Bandits, 12 Monkeys, etc. And this is a very fun, quirky movie. You've got an all-star cast of people here, including the late, great Robin Williams. And it's just one of my favourite films that not a lot of people really talk about. But I've always enjoyed this film. It's just a fun action-adventure romp, sort of fable. Really good film, guys. I definitely recommend people checking out The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. It's definitely one of Terry Gilliam's, I feel, more slept-on films. I'm not really a fan of director Terry Gilliam. I tend to find him very hit and miss. mostly miss with me. Admittedly, I've not seen 12 Monkeys, which I hear is a great movie. I saw Time Bandits. I thought that was alright. I've not seen Brazil, but his sort of later films, like The Imagination of Dr. Parnassus, I believe it was, the one that had what's his name, the actor that played the Joker in The Dark Knight. That's really going to bother me now. His name escapes me. He passed away during that film, and they sort of got Johnny Depp and Colin Farrell sort of came in, and Jude Law as well, and they sort of played the character. But if you watch the movie, it kind of works. But anyway, but despite him being very hit and miss for me, this film just really clicks with me, and I really do enjoy it. So I definitely urge people to go out and check out The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Very slept on movie. Next film I picked up, and this is one I've been meaning to check out, still haven't watched it yet, and that's Star Trek Beyond. I've enjoyed the modern incarnation of Star Trek. I've actually, on Netflix, I've been going through all the Star Trek shows. I've actually watched all of them now. The only thing I'm currently still watching Star Trek Enterprise, and I've yet to see the original series. I've seen a few episodes, but I've yet to go through that. But I've watched sort of all the other ones. And I do like the modern films. I find them quite fun. And I know some people took issue with the second movie, but I hear this one's pretty good, and I still haven't checked it out yet, but I look forward to doing so at some point. And the next film I've got here is Star Wars Rogue One. I really enjoyed this film at the cinema. I know this film has its detractors. I know some people take issue with some of the dodgy CGI in some places with certain characters. I won't spoil the film, but ultimately I thought this was a great film. But this film has definitely divided a lot of people, including my own friends. A lot of my friends sort of came out of the cinema thinking they thought it was a great movie, they enjoyed the movie, but they kind of felt that the story itself didn't really need to be told. And I definitely see where they're coming from with that regard. This is definitely, the story itself is very tied into the original first Star Wars film, Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope. It's very tied to that movie. And as cool as this film was, ultimately when you look at it, this story didn't really need to be told, but it was fun for what it is, and I really did enjoy it. Yeah, and I do find it surprisingly replayable as well. I've watched it a few times now, and I really do enjoy it. So yeah, glad to have that. Okay, next series of films. Basically, these are all nostalgic-driven pickups. Some of these are upgrades to Blu-ray, and others just movies that I haven't got around to picking up for whatever reason. The first one I've got here is a triple feature, and that is Friday, Menace to Society, and Set It Off. Now, I bought this primarily because I wanted to get Friday and Menace to Society on Blu-ray. I've not seen Set It Off. I know what it's about, but I've not seen that film. But the first two movies, Friday is an absolute classic. Menace to Society is just a fantastic film. Definitely one of my favourite sort of quote-unquote hood movies. I suppose you could put Friday into that same category as well, but Friday is a comedy, whereas Menace to Society is a drama. But both are great films, stand the test of time. I grew up with both of those films. Friday to me is still as funny as it was when I first watched it. I even have the soundtrack on CD, which I absolutely love. It's actually one of my favourite movie soundtracks. But definitely worth recommending. This is the American import. It's region free. It's got basically all three films. They're all director's cut versions as well, which I've never seen before up until I watched this. It's quite weird, especially on Friday, because the extra stuff they put in. At first, it's kind of jarring because I've watched Friday so much in my life that I know the rhythm and the pacing of the movie. So when I watched the director's cut, I found it very jarring in the beginning because the extra stuff they put in there, while it is good and it's funny, it just sort of messes with the flow of the film that I'm used to. Oh, thank you. So it was kind of hard to get used to at first, but it is good. It is. I did enjoy the director's cut, but it did take a little bit of getting used to. But in any case, really glad to get this. Next nostalgic film for me, and this is definitely because, you know, again, the late great Robin Williams. I remember seeing this film as a kid, and that was Jumanji. I know it's about to get like a semi-sequel remake kind of thing, but I enjoyed this film back in the day. It's not a great movie, admittedly. Like, I am aware of its flaws, but I enjoyed it back in the day, and I still enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. And this is one of the very few Robin Williams movies that sort of is more commercial stuff, should I say, the more family friendly stuff that I really did enjoy. And it's a shame he's not around anymore. But yeah, it's just one of those films that just always makes me laugh. Robin Williams is just one of those actors that I used to just love watching ever since the Mork and Mindy days. And this is one of the few sort of his more sort of commercial films that I really did enjoy. So yeah, great to get there finally. I never owned this before. And of course, sticking with Robin Williams, I also had to pick up Mrs. Doubtfire. This is a movie, again, I've never owned before, but I really enjoyed. I saw this film back in the day as well at the cinema. Definitely one of my favourite Robin Williams movies. I'm not really a fan of his sort of commercial films for the most part, but there's like 2 or 3. This is basically the second one of maybe like 3 of his sort of really commercial films that I really did enjoy. Fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But if you have seen it, obviously you don't need me to tell you how great of a performance Robin Williams is in this movie. Next nostalgic film or series for me, and that is the Best of the Best. Now this is actually 4 films. Now the first movie in this series starred James L. Jones and Eric Roberts. It's a great movie. I really do enjoy it. Now for me it's a personal classic. Some people might dispute how much of a classic it is, but for me the first movie is a classic. Really do enjoy that film. It's very different. It's a martial arts film, drama. So much fun. As they kind of go on, there's like 4 films. As they kind of go on, they become more sort of typical action films, but they're all fun in their own right. And this is a bit of a budget title. You can't go wrong with these 4 movies. I mean, they're just sort of that kind of 80s, that sort of late 80s, early 90s sort of cheese fest. Fun films, definitely worth a watch, especially the first film. Definitely check out the first film. It's a really good movie, and there's a lot of heart in it as well. You do like the characters. Yeah, just fun, great to have. The second movie, Best of the Best 2, I've got a lot of nostalgic memories for, because it was actually the film I remember. I think I was about 10 or 11 years old, and my best friend at the time, he was one of those kids where he was like very sheltered. Like he wasn't about watching sort of 18 rated movies, and it was actually the first 18 rated movie I managed to get him to watch. And not only did he watch it, he loved it. Like, he absolutely loved it. In fact, all the way up until recent years, like, he still quotes it to this day. That's how much he enjoyed it. But yeah, just a lot of funny memories, because I remember being in Blockbuster with him back then and trying to convince him to watch it. And eventually I did, and it was just it was a great moment, I think. A great little victory for me as well, as I sort of managed to get him to come out of his shell a little bit. So yeah, great movies. Another nostalgic film for me, one I loved as a kid and still do to this day, and that is the original Clash of the Titans. Forget the crappy remake, this is the one to go for. Now, to be fair, this definitely, I would say this film does need a remake, but unfortunately the remake we did get was a bunch of crap. But this film has aged. Now, I love the movie, I still enjoy it, but the stop motion effects of the creatures have aged very badly, I have to say. I mean, it is what it is. Stop motion just doesn't age very well. But hopefully this gets another remake done right, because the one we did get was just a CGI mess. I mean, there was no tension. I mean, one thing, I think for me, what made the original Clash of the Titans great was that, you know, it had a great sense of foreboding. The tension was really there. Great action adventure, but there was, I think the problem I have with a lot of the remakes that that sort of Hollywood sort of churns out in nowadays is that a lot of them just sort of lack heart. That's really what it is. I mean, every now and again you get a really good remake, but most of them, they just seem really hollow and fake and plastic. And they just sort of miss the point about what made the original so great. And I think the remake to Clash of the Titans definitely fell into that. It was just a very hollow film. It just focused on action and spectacle, but it really was just ultimately a very hollow film, a very shallow movie. But this one just really delivers with story, characters. It's just really well developed. The only thing that lets this film down now is just the effects. It's still fun. It's fun in that very sort of old school way, but it definitely won't. It's not going to hold up for today's sort of younger generations. But I still enjoy this film for what it is, and it's a great movie. Hopefully, someone will come along and do the film right, because I'm not against remakes completely, but they just we need to get someone that really understands the material and focus on story and characters rather than just trying to deliver spectacle, because ultimately that's where these films always fail. Rant over. Anyway, moving on. Next films series for me, had to get this on Blu-ray. It's one of my favourite films franchises of all time, and that is the Robocop trilogy. Now, I'm not going to talk about Robocop 3 because that's a pile of crap, but Robocop 1 and 2 for me are fantastic movies. The first one is an absolute gem. I'm not even going to talk about the first one, because you all know, if you've not seen the original Robocop film from 1989, what are you doing? Check it out. It's fantastic. The second movie, Robocop 2, a lot of people give that film some hate. I personally think it's a fantastic film. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I absolutely do enjoy it. I think it's a brilliant movie. It definitely delivers. It has some of the best stop motion in it that I've ever seen. It's the climax has a great battle between Robocop and Kane, and some great stop motion work being done in that film. I just enjoy it for what it is. Some people have issues with it. Me personally, I think it's one of those films that I think is unfairly critiqued, should I say. But the third film is just a mess. It's not even worth watching. But in any case, it's nice to get all three films. Especially, I actually got this for a very cheap price as well, so it's definitely well worth getting. And finally, in these sort of nostalgic pickups, I saw it was coming out on Blu-ray now. Originally, it came out as a Steelbook. It was a Steelbook exclusive for a while. The Steelbook sold out very quickly. It was very hard to get. It sort of rose in price. But I held off on the Steelbook because, quite frankly, like, Steelbooks are a bit of a pain in the ass to look after. I don't really have too much spaces for Steelbooks, so I kind of reserve my Steelbook purchasing mainly for superhero based stuff. But I was glad to know that it was going to get a standard sort of Armory release, and it's one of my favourite sort of not only nostalgic movies but also one of my favourite sort of horror comedies as well, and that is Fright Night. Fantastic movie. If you've not seen Fright Night, please check it out. Fright Night did get a remake, which me personally I did not like, but I know some people do, but I didn't really like the Fright Night remake. But the original Fright Night from the 80s is just so much fun. It's definitely worth checking out, guys. I think it's an absolute classic. And yeah, really glad to finally get it on Blu-ray. Now, in anticipation for this, I had to pick up the sequel. Now, the sequel is surprisingly hard to get on Blu-ray. It's not available in the UK officially on Blu-ray, so I had to resort to a Spanish copy. So that, of course, is Fright Night 2. And this follows on from the original one, and I also think it's a gem. Now, this film I was kind of hesitant to buy because I actually hadn't seen this film since I was a kid. And I remember as a kid really enjoying it, but I wasn't too sure if it was going to hold up. So I actually watched it on YouTube. You can actually watch this film on YouTube. And I watched it all the way through, and it really held up. I thought the film was great. It was still as good as I remembered it to be. It's not as good as the original, but it's still a fun continuation of the characters. and it's a great movie. And yeah, so I had to resort to the Spanish copy, but it is region free, guys, and of course it does play in English. So great to get that as well. Okay, so moving on, I've got just a bunch of randoms here. First one I picked up is Straight Outta Compton. Yes, the biopic of NWA. Still not gotten around to watching this year. I'm a bit backlogged, so I haven't seen this yet. But I've heard so much good things, and I am a fan of the group. You know, if most of you that know me know that I'm a big hip hop head, so I was happy to get this film, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. Next film I had to get, this is an upgrade, and that is A Bronx Tale. This is a fantastic movie. It was directed by Robert De Niro, of all people. He also appears in the movies. He's a supporting player in the film. This is an underrated gem, guys. If you like that gangster film, that Italian gangster movies, check out A Bronx Tale, guys. It is brilliant. It's one of my favourite films. There's so many quotables, so many great scenes in this film. Definitely check it out, guys. I don't know why no one talks about this film. It's amazing. Check it out. Another film, again, this is an upgrade, and that is Carlito's Way. One of my favourite Al Pacino films. And a lot of people talk about Scarface, but not a lot of people talk about Carlito's Way as much. And for me, this is definitely up there. It's a fantastic movie. A lot of twists and turns, great characters. Definitely check it out, guys, if you haven't already. Next I picked up was the Romero triple pack. Unfortunately, at the time I'm making this film, George Romero actually passed away the other day due to lung cancer. So it's actually quite sad, but because I'm a big fan of the zombie genre, and more specifically George Romero's zombie movies. And these three are basically the sort of the last three zombie films that he made. Unfortunately, they're not the best. Actually, no. They're not all, it's only two of the three that were made by him, and one of them is actually a remake of one of his films. So you've got Survival of the Dead and Diary of the Dead. Both of those were directed by George Romero, and I think Diary of the Dead is probably the best of the two. It is one of those sort of found footage type films, which I'm not really a fan of, but I did enjoy it for what it was. And Survival of the Dead, I thought was just okay. It wasn't the best. Day of the Dead is a fun movie, but a very poor remake of the original. If you've seen the original Day of the Dead, directed by George Romero, then this remake is a bit of a letdown. But I like it because it's different enough. It doesn't really copy the movie, the original, all that much. It really just takes the title and one of the characters. It doesn't really do a particularly good job, but I like the movie for what it is. So I thought as a 3-pack, this was definitely worth getting. Next film I got here. This is one of those comedies that, again, no one really talks about, but I find it hilarious. And that is Role Models. This movie stars Sean William Scott and Paul Rudd. And I think it's an underrated comedy. If any of you know about LARPing, that's live action role playing. It has one of the funniest, most epic LARPing scenes, and it's taken so seriously. Like the way they film it, the way they shoot it, it's played like it's a proper like a sort of dark fantasy battle scene, but because it's all like live action role play, it's just even funnier. But definitely check out Role Models. It's a very funny movie. It's very slept on as well. Definitely check it out. Next movie I had to get, and that is Falling Down, a brilliant film by Michael Douglas. Just one of those movies. I've got this thing for anti-heroes. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Taxi Driver, and this kind of falls into that camp. If you don't know about Falling Down, it's basically about this guy who, while he's sitting in his car in like this really hot weather, he just suddenly snaps, and he basically just goes on this walk, and he basically takes on a lot of the scum on the streets and things that just piss him off, and basically piss us off as well. But obviously we would never go as far as what he does. But it's an entertaining movie, guys. Obviously there's some commentary as well about obviously the state of the economy at the time that this film was made. It's just a really good film. I definitely urge people to check out Falling Down if you haven't seen it. Next movie I got here is Schwarzenegger's Last Action Hero. Now this is a film I've never owned before. It's a film I actually didn't see until quite late in the day. And I really like the concept of this film. It's very different to Schwarzenegger's usual fare, and it kind of pokes fun at all the Schwarzenegger isms that we're accustomed to in his films. And it's quite a clever film. I do remember at the time this film was not highly rated, and I believe it bombed at the cinema as well. But personally, I think it's a fun movie. I think it was a bit ahead of its time. I think at the time people didn't really appreciate it for what it was. But it definitely sort of pokes fun at sort of the action genre of that time, the sort of the 80s and 90s action film. It's a fun movie. I definitely recommend it. If you've not seen this film before, it's definitely something a little bit different, while also poking fun at sort of the usual Schwarzenegger action hero cliches. Definitely worth checking out. And lastly of this bundle is one of my favourite Jackie Chan movies of all time. I absolutely love this film, and I was glad that it got a proper Blu-ray 4K release, and that is Drunken Master. Just a fantastic movie, guys. One of my favourite Jackie Chan films. One of his earlier films as well. Just so much fun. Classic all the way. I don't really know what to say about this film. It's just a lot of fun. Great action scenes. Classic old school kung fu, and definitely one of his best. Okay, so coming to the end, guys. Still got a few more to go here. Next up, we're moving on to sort of the animated stuff I've picked up of various degrees. First thing, my one and only DVD pickup, and that is Star Wars Clone Wars Part 2. I think in my last Blu-ray pickup, I picked up Part 1 on DVD. This one is surprisingly much more trickier to track down. It's sort of more expensive. It was part of that animated mini-series that sort of filled in the gaps between episode 2 and episode 3, and they eventually sort of took it out of the canon and replaced it with the CGI Clone Wars series, which is good in its own right. But I think these two little mini-series were some of the best Star Wars stuff in animated form, in any form really. It's fantastic stuff. It's very dark and edgy, and they really did some good stuff with the characters, especially given the prequel world that they had to work in, because most of us, you know, don't think much of the prequels, but they're really corny, they're overblown CGI fests. But these sort of animated features were really good. They did some good stuff in these films. Unfortunately, they've not been given the Blu-ray release. I think they've just been basically shelved, forgotten about, because they're no longer canon anymore. But they're definitely worth hunting down, guys. Definitely check out the original Star Wars Clone Wars miniseries. Next up I've got here, this is a film I've been meaning to check out. I've not watched it yet, and that is Snoopy, the Charlie Brown movie. This was basically the recent sort of CG movie based around Charlie Brown. I had to check this out. I've not gotten around to it yet, but I had to pick it up because I was a fan of Charlie Brown growing up. I never knew it as Peanuts. I know in the US it was known as the Peanuts series. I always knew it as the Snoopy series. Here in the UK it was known as Snoopy, the Snoopy Show or something like that. And I remember watching them as a kid, and I really did enjoy them. So, and I've heard a lot of great things about this particular CG movie. I believe the makers really sort of respected the original source material. They even stuck to the designs, the artwork style of the original series, despite the fact that it's in 3D. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out. I actually might watch it tonight. Next up, we've got some DC comic stuff. Just stuff I've been meaning to pick up. First one is Batman, The Return of the Cape Crusaders. Essentially, this is a feature-length movie based around the old 60s TV show starring Adam West and Burt Ward. They even come back and voice the characters as well. It's a shame that Adam West passed away recently, but I'm glad that he managed to do this because it really does sort of poke fun of the original show. But it doesn't take the mick out of it. It's all done in a very respectful way. But it's definitely worth a watch, guys. If you were a fan of the old Adam West 60s Batman show, you definitely owe it to yourself to check this one out, because this is basically a love letter to that show, while also taking the mick out of it as well in certain ways, respectfully taking the mick out of it. But it's so much fun. Definitely worth checking out, guys. Next animated feature I got here is Justice League Dark. This was basically the supernatural characters of the DC universe coming together in a sort of super team. So you've got Swamp Thing, John Constantine, among others, and Batman makes an appearance. Of course, you see him front and center because we can't have a DC animated film without Batman. But it's really good. Definitely worth checking out. And I believe they are going to make a film based around these characters. So yeah, if you're into the sort of DC animated stuff, definitely worth checking out. It's definitely, I think, one of the better ones. Next one I picked up is Teen Titans: The Judas Contract. I've always been a fan of Teen Titans, mostly based around the series Young Justice, which is sort of like a loose Teen Titans. It's centered around the former Robin, Nightwing, and his team of superheroes, and it's really good. This is actually an adaptation of one of their more famous comic storylines. I've never read the original storyline, but I know it's highly regarded, and it's a fun movie. I don't think it's as good as people make it out to be, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was fun, and yeah, nice, another addition to the collection. And lastly, for the animated stuff, I picked up Vixen the movie. Essentially, what this is basically part of the Arrow, Flash, and Legends of Tomorrow sort of live action series. Basically, what they did was, this is set in the same world as those TV shows, but it was sort of done as an animated mini-series, and essentially it was sort of done as like short, I believe it was like 10-minute episodes. And what this basically does is it collects all those 10 minutes and puts it together as one really long, like 2-hour animated film, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cool, especially since the actress that voiced Vixen actually got to play the character as well in live action on the other shows as well. So there is a connective tissue, and of course the actor that plays the Flash in the live action show, as well as the guy that plays Green Arrow in his show, they also appear on this as their characters and voices as well. And what's really cool is that I believe there was an episode of Arrow where they even referenced the fact that they were on this show as well. So it's a really cool show, but definitely something I believe more for sort of hardcore DC animated nerds like myself. Probably not for the casuals. And yeah, so the next last animated film I had to get. This is something very nostalgic for me. I had this on DVD. I had this on VHS as a kid, and I absolutely wore that tape out completely. And that, of course, is G.I. Joe the movie. This comes with a DVD and Blu-ray. It is Region 1 locked, so you can't actually import it unless you have a Region 3 player. You can actually buy this in the UK as a DVD, but the quality of the DVD is crap. It's absolute pants. So I had to get this because I wanted the proper transfer. Even the DVD version of this is far superior to the UK version. But yeah, I loved this film as a kid. Now, most of us growing up in the UK did not know about G.I. Joe. We knew this series as Action Force. That's how it was known here in the UK. So it took, in the beginning, it took a bit of getting used to seeing it as G.I. Joe, because essentially what they did was for the sort of European market, they redubbed some of the lines to fit in with Action Force, because in the original show, their calling cry was "Go Joe," but because obviously over here it wasn't known as G.I. Joe, it was known as Action Force. Their cry in our show was "Full Force," which was like awkwardly dubbed in. But in any case, it's great to have, because I still find this film as much fun as I did back when I was a kid, when I wore out the tape. So really glad to get like the definitive version of it. It's just a shame that it's not region free, or the fact that here in the UK we never got a Blu-ray release. Okay, so finally, the Steelbooks. First things first, I think I'll start with some Marvel Steelbooks. First thing I got is Doctor Strange in Steelbook. Brilliant movie, so much fun. I'm just a massive fan of these Marvel films, and I'm glad that we finally got a Doctor Strange film. I never thought I would ever see a Doctor Strange movie in live action, but they really did the character justice. So much fun, really enjoyed it, and I'm glad to get the Steelbook. Next one I got here is Daredevil Season 2 in Steelbook. This is a brilliant series. It's on Netflix, guys. You can check it out on Netflix. But I definitely had to get the Steelbook because it's so cool. It's really nice. Don't know when I'm ever going to actually use it, because you can, like I say, I could just watch it on Netflix. But the Steelbooks were just so nice, I can't pass them up. So yeah, glad to get this. And finally, I picked up a film I've wanted to get on Steelbook, just to match the first film in the series. And what I picked up was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This is the Korean release. And I did have to pay... Actually, this film used to be really expensive. I think this film was about... This Steelbook, should I say, used to sell for about £70 or so. But I guess there was like a much better release that came out later on by another company. So this kind of dropped in price, but it was still expensive though. I paid £30 for this. But it's fantastic though. It's packed loaded with features. Even though it's the Korean release, it is all in English. You've got 3 cuts of the movie. You've got the theatrical version, the special edition, and the extended special edition as well. So there's a lot of stuff here. It's fantastic. 3 versions of the film. You can't go wrong with it, really. And it's just nice to finally have T2 to go with my T1 Steelbook. So that's it, guys. That's all the pickups. That's all my movies I've picked up now since January. Yeah, a lot of films here. I've actually watched quite a lot of them. So don't think, even though I said I'm backlogged, I've actually watched quite a lot of this already. But yeah, guys, thank you very much for watching. You know, it's always appreciated. Let me know what you think of the films. What films do you like, guys? What are the films that I brought up that you like? Let me know, guys, in the comments below. Let me know what films that you liked, or films you reckon I should check out. Definitely let me know, guys. I do like getting recommendations as well. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around, and I will be back soon. Bye-bye.